What's going on, traders, and welcome to this week's episode of the Weekly Watchlist. I haven't done the Weekly Watchlist in quite some time, so what I want you to do is leave me some feedback in the comments section or with a thumbs up or a thumbs down on whether or not you find these videos useful. If you find them useful, I'd be glad to and happy to bring them back, releasing them on Sundays as I can. Or if no one really responds and I get sort of from the audience, then this isn't quite worth my time to edit the video, take the video. But so let me know in the comments or shoot me a thumbs up, thumbs down, one way or another. Let me know. But as always, we're going to do a technical analysis on the tickers I watch with liquid options chains. On the left here, you see we have the broad market SPY, the Qs, and IWM. IWM is just the Russell 2000. And then after that, we have a few companies that we look at: Apple, Netflix, Tesla, Alibaba, Facebook, and NVDA. So with that, let's get started on SPY. One thing I'd like to point out before we get into the chart too deep is that we are looking at the weekly time frame. So what I want you to pay attention to is that we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 green weeks in a row. And also look at the magnitude here. We came from 233 at the low down here back towards Christmas time, and we're all the way back up at 280 just about, for round numbers sake. So almost $45 there in 9 weeks. So keep that in mind. If we scroll back through history, what do we see? We see a couple small string of green days here. How many dollars was that? Oh, yeah, just about $10. Scroll back a little further. This one here, a little under about $15. So point being, this is an unsustainable trajectory in the upwards direction. Eventually, SPY will need to have a bit of a pullback here, take a breath, and I'm feeling like we're coming upon that soon. And to sort of examine that closely, we can see that we've had this triple top here. It's a little more prominent on the daily chart, but a triple top there, and we're barreling into it at full speed ahead. And the only thing I can imagine happening there is either a pause, and the market will then take the breath it needs to take and consolidate a little bit there, or the market is emotional, so maybe it gets there and people are like, hell yeah, let's just keep going, and the market continues in the upwards direction. No one can really say for sure, but the logical thing on my end and what I'm thinking about is a potential breath here on SPY. So let's take a look at the daily chart, see if we see anything different there. All right, so what I'm looking at here is SPY's daily chart, and we see the same trajectory in the upwards direction. However, the days are starting to get less and less intense in terms of magnitude. You can see we had these really, really aggressive days down here as people were buying the dip. When the social sentiment of the market sort of turned around and became positive again, and people started buying, and slowly we sort of see the candles lower in size, get tighter in size, tighter in range, meaning that there's not as much emotion wrapped up in the market at this point. So like I said, we're barreling into this triple top here. The line in the sand I have is at 281.22. However, I think it could come a little bit sooner, and the market may just decide to bounce right off the whole 280 mark, which is close enough in terms of this massive move here. So some places that SPY might go after we get there, like I said, it could either break through to the upside, in which case our next resistance comes into play based on some prior data. That next one is right around 286, so it has about $5 to run if it does decide to just barrel right through there. However, the more likely scenario in my head is a pullback into the 200 SMA, consolidation down to that point, and then if we see a further retracement off there, I'd use the Fibonacci tool just to sort of see where that might put us for some basic numbers, and we're looking at the 38.2 is next, and that's sort of coinciding with the 50 SMA right now, which is more than reasonable on a healthy pullback. It also sort of coincides with some of these lows in here. We have a low here, and this is well within that sort of level. We have a bunch of support down there, so that may be a place to watch out for on a deeper pullback, somewhere closer to the 50 SMA. That level is right around 262. But further than that, I would just play this one day by day, play the gaps, and make use of the volatility while we still have it. So things to keep in mind on SPY. The Qs are very similar. However, the only thing that we have different here is that the price is already currently struggling right around the 200 SMA level. The price has acted as resistance up there, or the 200 has acted as resistance there, and then it's turned into support once it broke above. You can see today it acted as a little bit of support, and right now we're sort of sandwiched in between the 200 and our resistance based on the high of this candle back here. So again, same thing. We're either looking at a bit of a further breakout to the upside if we can pop through this resistance and the market wants to push higher. We're looking at our next one, which is based on the next high, obviously, at 175. After that, we're looking at the next one, so on and so forth, 178. However, like I said, the more likely scenario in my mind is that we start to see a bit of a pullback in the market in the upcoming few weeks. And obviously in that case, the next place we would go is our support below us at 167.81. And again, you could use the fibs, see where that 38.2 might bring us. Down here, again, coinciding with that 50 SMA, and also a bit of a support zone down here. It definitely seems like there could be some support if it does decide to pull back that far to continue higher. So, all right, we're looking at the Russell 2000 now, which is IWM. And the reason we look at this one is because it was a leader on the break to the downside and sort of forecasted the whole market moving lower. Right around this area, it decided to go lower. We had a significantly lower high when all the other market ETFs indexes sort of tracked an equal high. We had the triple top on SPY. Qs had a less aggressive lower high here. It was more coinciding with that trend line that we had, as you saw. But the IWM acted as a leader and, sort of showed the market weakness before it really fell apart elsewhere. So we had the lower high, market moved lower, and then it moved higher. And same thing. If we're looking at IWM in terms of being a leader, it is at a pretty key resistance point. It is the high of this candle as well as this candle coming up right in here. 200 SMA is also coinciding with it. Again, if we flipped it to the weekly, it would look the same, just a bunch of green weeks in a row. You can see this thing has barely taken a breath, only once and then twice here, and it certainly looks like it might pull back and backtest this resistance line here. So again, let's see where the fibs put us. So not quite the 50 SMA on the IWM, however, certainly in line with almost these lows here. We're looking at 146, 145, just about on a pullback to that 38.2 level. And again, we're looking at this one because it has acted as a leader in the past. Not to say it will again, however, it's just another thing to keep in mind as we approach some of these key levels in the market. Alrighty, so moving into our companies now, we'll start off here with Apple. Apple has made a nice little move off of the bounce of the bottom of this sort of downtrend here. And we saw a gap down, gap got filled, and then a little gap up here. So right now I would look for on Apple a break of this resistance trend line. You can see we got rejected here, and that's exactly where we closed again today. If we can break out to the upside, I would target this next descending trend line, which comes from our resistance back here, those two data points. That would be the next target somewhere up here. That's on the upside. If we get a breakdown, I would look at something more along the lines of this on the breakdown. If we can break below that trend line, then potentially targeting the 50 SMA, which is down here at 160. Netflix has a rising wedge, which is this pattern up here. We see this resistance trend line drawn in along with a support trend line. And this is actually a bearish pattern, so we're looking for a breakdown below this support. My target would be somewhere down here around the 200 SMA, possibly this support zone here coincides with the high there. However, if this just decides to go sideways and sort of hang out just below this resistance level here, right around 365, 366, I would watch for that consolidation, maybe a slight pullback again, and then a break to the upside as buyers and sellers agree on a price and could potentially push higher. Tesla's always an interesting one, really volatile, and you never quite know how it's going to react. On the daily chart, you can see we had a nice bullish pattern, and then we failed on the attempt of going all the way to 400. Anyways, we are in a bit of a symmetrical triangle, not really, but we do have these two trend lines. Could be a triangle if you choose to play it that way. Could not be. Could just be a support and a resistance. But what I would watch for here is a potential bounce. We are at a confluence of support lines. Potential bounce up towards the upper resistance, also coinciding with that 200 SMA, the 50 SMA. Everything just looks for a ripe turnaround if we do approach this level here. But again, Elon Musk, sporadic, could tweet something, could say something, cause the price to do something no one expects. Alibaba has had a double bottom here, triple bottom, depending on how you want to classify these two instances. But right now it's looking a little overextended in the upwards direction, as is the market. So I could see Baba potentially going a little bit higher, maybe gapping up Monday into this resistance trend line, or it could just go flat one way or another. Either way, I would look for resistance to come into play here and possibly play some puts. Another realistic target on this one is for it to come back down into the 200 SMA on a little pullback here. It might take a couple weeks or something, but again, a nice little pullback here into this sort of support zone, and then a continued move higher would look healthy on Baba. Facebook, we had a pretty nice downtrend going on. I had these highs drawn in from here to here, and the 50 SMA was working nicely with that, but we've since broken out of that. It looks like we've had a pretty big gap up on earnings over here. So the way to play this one in my mind is either we look for a gap fill if we break down below this 158.86 level. This is again coming from some lows and highs over here. If we break down below that, we're looking for a gap fill, whether or not you want to call that the high of this candle, the close of this candle, however you want to classify it. The target is lower if we break. If we go sideways and sort of consolidate, then again, we're going to have to give that one more time to play out. But again, we could see some sort of crazy support coming into play like that. Who knows? If it goes sideways, we're going to have to wait for more data to come in and then make a new plan based on that. So Facebook. And lastly, NVDA. We're looking at a couple of different trend lines here. We have a resistance in play and a support in play. We're currently in the upper range there. You can see we have this small uptrend being built, mirroring this one here. So one of two things could happen. Again, you have to react to these. You can't necessarily always predict them and get them right 100% of the time, so we're reacting. If we get a negative reaction off of this resistance trend line, we're looking at a target of the 50 SMA, which is down here, along the lines of this support zone. That's on the turnaround. Or if we get the breakout of this sort of mini symmetrical triangle, we're looking at a target of this upwards gap fill in here. So again, however you want to classify that, if that's the low of this candle, if it's the low of this candle, if it's the close of the last day, however you want to classify it, we're looking for a move higher if we break out to the upside there. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. If you give me some feedback, I will know to either continue or stop making these videos. Let me know down below in the comments section. Leave this video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, one way or another. Give me some feedback. Let me know if I'm wasting my time or not. And with that, I hope you have a green trading week this week ahead.